Going.
Dyke, Sarah Joanne, Liberal Democrats, 21,187.
Going.
Mather, Keir Alexander, Labour Party, 16,456.
Hold on.
Steve Tuckwell, the Conservative Party candidate, 13,900.
Yeah! These are the interesting times. Hello everyone, my name's Matt Johnston and welcome to The Interesting Times, which is a political comedy show from the UK. Well, the news is in on the three by-elections. In Somerton and Frome, the Lib Dems carried on in their tradition of overturning huge Conservative majorities to win the seat by over 11,000 votes, a swing of nearly 30% away from the Tories. And in Selby and Ainsty, Labour overturned the Tories' largest ever majority to put in Keir, no relation, Mather into the House of Commons, and at 25 he will be the youngest MP in there, a fact some people aren't particularly happy about.
I mean, I think we mustn't become a sort of repeat of the in-betweeners.
I think it's fair to say that that ship has sailed.
You just dropped in and, put a chip in and they'll start parroting Labour Party politics. Good for me, because I don't think people are going to vote for it, right?
Don't think people are going to vote for it? While he's literally sat next to a graph showing people voted for it. So just to be clear, you can sign up and fight for your country from 16, the only European country to allow that, but according to ex-military Johnny Mercer, you can't stand for Parliament 9 years later. And the issue is an important one because we've got to get the younger generation involved in politics. The EU referendum showed that had the younger generation turned out to vote like the older generations, well, things might have been different. And surely one of the reasons for that is younger people not being involved with politics. I mean, the age-ranging views on my channel showed that nearly 90% of the views are people over the age of 45. But don't get me wrong, I love it. It means I can make all these pop culture references without people feeling like they're just another brick in the wall. So, this is good news. Yes, he looks about 12. But if you're my age, most people under the age of 30 do anyway. Besides, didn't Boris Johnson put a 29-year-old intern into the House of Lords? But why would a Tory not want the younger generation getting involved in politics? But it wasn't the clean sweep that people were predicting, as the Tories held on to Uxbridge by less than 500 votes. With such a small win, people started questioning what could have made a difference. Was there still a love for the blobbists? Perhaps those ID laws the Tories brought in last year might have helped swing things their way. Although all the talk seemed to be about one policy the Conservatives focus on.
The Mayor of London, despite objections, has decided to expand the ULEZ zone across all London boroughs.
Sadiq Khan has lost the argument regarding ULEZ.
ULEZ extension, I have to be careful what I say, so I can't really comment on Sadiq Khan's unfair cash-grabbing anti-Tory scam.
The zone is being expanded against the overwhelming views of residents and businesses.
The thing is that isn't a Labour policy at all.
You've turned this into a referendum on the ultra-low emission zone, something that your government has actually legislated for local authorities to meet targets on air quality.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a Tory one. This letter from Grant Shapps, the Secretary of State at the time, for the Conservatives, states quite clearly the agreement for funding of TfL. So with three different parties winning three different seats, what's my personal take, I hear nobody asking? Well, honestly, I actually think that this is the best result for all of us anti-Tories, because having one win by the smallest majority just papering over the cracks, really. And this is a Conservative Party, so there are a lot of cracks. Look, had Sunak lost all three by-elections, he would be out of Downing Street faster than a good idea. But he can now claim a victory.
Westminster's been acting like the next election's a done deal,
says a politician that literally lives at Westminster.
It's a reminder to politicians that we need to focus on what matters to people and not be distracted by what's going on in Westminster.
Again, you're Westminster. It's a place and you live there. And it's a government and you're supposed to be in charge of that government. You can't just wipe the slate clean on 13 years of Conservative rule because you've only been in the job for 9 months.
Tories have never had such a low share of the vote. So what's gone wrong?
But we need a bit more time. Rishi Sunak has been Prime Minister for only 9 months.
I stand corrected. It does seem that Rishi Sunak is unclear that Rishi Sunak is the Prime Minister, a point that was emphasised on Wednesday's Prime Minister's Question Time, when Rishi Sunak came back after 3 weeks away.
Now, again, I'll give him a second chance. If he really wants to get people the health care that they want, will he agree with me that those doctors should accept the recommendations of the independent pay review body?
Can I just say to the Prime Minister, it's opposition questions, it's Prime Minister's questions.
Yes, it's Prime Minister's questions, and you are the Prime Minister. Honestly, I'm as surprised as anybody. But for those concerned about what happens to the show should Labour sweep to power, which they look to be doing, I would say don't worry. It's looking like there'll be plenty more material after 2024. Labour have about-faced on their promise of getting rid of the two-child benefit cap, and was brought in as part of George Osborne's austerity push by Philip Hammond in 2017. Put simply, as the name suggests, benefits will not be paid for any more than 2 children, and it is a vile Victorian policy, and only the most dark-souled boneheads would support it.
Now then, just last week, the Leader of the Opposition announced his new flagship policy, the two-child benefit cap. It goes down very popular on this side of the House.
And if you think this sounds bad, then you really don't understand just how low the Tories can go.
George Osborne infamously put in place, and what it seeks to do is to limit the resource which low-income families can receive from government depending on how many kids they've got. And of course, attached to that is the appalling and abhorrent rape clause as well, which means that a woman who has perhaps been the victim of rape would have to prove that to the state in order to get benefits. I mean, what kind of society are we living in where that's the case?
Depressingly, this is correct. The government's own website does say, as part of your claim, you may need to provide details of a rape conviction. A conviction rate that last year was 1.3%. So why are Labour doing this?
Look, again, it's one of those things that I just can't see where the money's going to come from.
You! The money's going to come from you!
Lucy Powell MP, a Labour shadow minister, has claimed today that there is no money left which would allow the Labour Party to remove the two-child benefit cap. It's her job to understand that if there is a good use for money, then a government can create it and spend it and put it into use and then tax it back to cancel the impact on inflation. But apparently she doesn't know that. And in my opinion, that is unforgivable.
Exactly, the money is there. This will set the government back a total of £1.3 billion in the first year and immediately lift hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty. If you don't want to break open the printing press, then removing the VAT relief from private schools would raise £1.5 billion a year. Job done, keep the change. But if it's looking like a race to the bottom, there is really only going to be one winner.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the best route out of poverty is through work, Mr. Speaker, and the best way to ensure that children do not grow up in poverty is to ensure that they do not grow up in a workless household.
Work will set you free? Are the Tories still upset about the 1930s German comparison? And that's it. No time to talk about Caroline Lucas showing just how much she's going to be missed in Parliament.
Now, he likes to claim that the UK is decarbonising more quickly than the rest of the G7, but since the Paris Agreement, that is simply not true. Experts, businesses and the public all want bolder climate action, but it isn't even one of his top 5 priorities.
Like a grown-up talking in a room full of farting babies. Just Stop Oil continued with their peaceful disruption, and whilst climate change was clearly an immediate problem, it wasn't the only ones these people were facing. Ooh. Shameful, disgraceful behaviour. But for those concerned about this young man, don't worry, he's okay, and he had a message.
Hi, my name's Daniel, I'm 21, I'm a student. You might have seen in a video released earlier today that I was involved in a incident at West Cromwell Road. I want to say first of all that I feel no ill will or any ill sense. I'm afraid, really. I am afraid that the police will choose to go after him, and I don't want that, and I don't think anyone wants that. What I'd much rather have is the police go after the people at the top, the politicians, the people at the top of fossil fuel companies.
The future's bright, the future's orange. See, this is what I mean about pop culture references. No time to talk about some happier news, as Nigel Farage still hasn't been given a bank account, and he put in a subject access request to Coutts to find out the reasons, which were many.
So I put in what's called a subject access request to Coutts, the bank, who decided they wanted to close me out. It reads rather like a brief that you'd give to a barrister ahead of a serious criminal trial. I mean, from the tone of this document, I must be one of the worst human beings ever to have inhabited this planet.
No. All right, maybe top 3. The man that spends more time attacking vulnerable people in boats than a 19th century literary whale. Our very own mopey prick. Pretty sure none of them had a bank account closed with Coutts. He then went on to Newsnight to face off against financial economist and director of the Godfather films. That can't be right. Francis Coppola, who had previously designed risk management systems for NatWest, a bit of an expert in her field. So, how is Nigel going to cope with that?
The report makes it clear that the reason they closed his account was that Nigel paid off his mortgage and the house was released as a security, and that brought him below the criteria for an account at that bank, which we should remember is a specialist provider of private banking services to very rich people. So, should remember that this is not an ordinary...
What about all of them?
No, wait a minute.
They're all woke. They're all Remainer. They're all Globe.
The same way he always does. And yes, you know what, Nigel? I agree with John Sopel on this. Having your bank account stopped because of your political views is reprehensible and frankly bizarre. But there is good news for you.
Fortunately for Farage, there is legislation protecting bank account holders from discrimination based on political beliefs.
Oh, and some bad news for you.
The law in question has been retained by the UK, but it was originally passed by the European Union.
And his sometime supporter and fellow GB News nutjob, Laurence Fox, had a busy week running for election in Uxbridge.
Put a fox in the box tomorrow, come on.
Ah yes, very good, because Fox rhymes with box. You know what else rhymes with box? Anyway, how did he get on? 714 votes. So close. A mere 13,252 votes shy of winning. This represents 2.31% of the vote share, which is 0.5% up on his vote share to be London Mayor. But unfortunately, not enough for him to reclaim his deposit. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you're enjoying these vids, then please show your enjoyment through a combination of liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing and hitting that notifications bell, and I'll see you soon. Take care.